Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to share with all of you today. Today's date is October 28th, 2025, and it's Tuesday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. We've got a lot of news to cover with this war update, and we'll start out with very big news out of Russia's Belgorod region, as we have new information today that a recent Ukrainian HIMARS rocket strike on a dam caused widespread flooding, destroying Russian positions near Ukraine's border of the Kharkiv region, slowing down Russia's offensive along the Vovchansk area. I've got this new story for you here on your screen. Ukraine's strike on the Belgorod Dam floods Russian frontline areas. Videos emerging of Russia's Belgorod region show entire frontline positions submerged after a dam collapse flooded Russian defensive lines following a Ukrainian strike. So I think it was just back on like Sunday going into Monday, we had lots of reports coming out earlier this week that apparently Ukraine carried out some sort of HIMARS attack onto a major dam just south of Belgorod. So it's going to be just over the border from Ukraine's Kharkiv region where this strike was carried out, and it caused massive flooding after this dam had collapsed. And as you can see in the video footage, this is actually a Russian soldier walking through a trench line, and it is completely flooded out. You can see here. So we're going to talk about this. I actually have a new video to share with you. It's about a minute and a half long, showing how bad things are inside the Belgorod region with this flooding. Also, other top headline news, more reports that Russia's Lukoil and Rosneft oil giants recently sanctioned by the U.S. are taking on huge losses. India has announced suspension of new orders of Russian oil, and Greek tanker firms halted operations shipping Russian Urals crude, risking one-third of Russia's oil exports. So not looking good for these two oil giants that have been sanctioned by the U.S. Also, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made some very big statements regarding the war in Ukraine today. And also, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy made some announcements to the press that we will go over as well. So lots of news to cover. Let's go ahead and dive right into the news. We're going to hop on over to X with War Translated. It says Russian equipment and dugouts are literally going underwater in the Shebekino area and along the Vovchansk axis after a dam burst in the Belgorod region. The occupiers are whining that they now have to swim to reach their positions. Pretty insane what's happening over here. So I did report on this yesterday that this dam strike was carried out. I think it happened on Sunday, but it got attacked multiple times apparently. Several HIMARS rockets struck that dam, and then soon after it was attacked by artillery shells as well. That's what's caused the dam to breach and then flood a lot of areas south of that. I'll have a map to kind of show you guys visually here in just a moment. But I want you to see how bad the flooding is, and a lot of these videos are taken directly from Russian troops that are experiencing all the flooding and slowing down their advance into Ukraine. Take a look at this.
Вот так вот. Позиция дуб. Разлилась. Вода вышла с берегов. Вся дорога потопление. Ёбаный. Вот машина стоит в воде. Встала, а выехать не может.
Вот в таком плачевном состоянии переправа.
Вчера такая же была? Она здесь. Нет, я думал, прилет-то был, может, по ней. Прилет не переправа был. Там танк какой-то.
Закатили многие все насквозь мокрые. Давайте.
Вот так, Наташа. После прорыва Белгородской дамбы мы за сутки из пехоты превратились в морскую пехоту. Но нам повезло, а вот на соседней позиции вообще весь блиндаж затопило вместе с аппаратурой.
Вход в наш блиндаж. Хохлы взорвали дамбу, затопило все. Вытянули, что успели. Вещи все мокрые. Как сушить, хер знает. Такие дела.
All right, so it looks like this was definitely a coordinated strike by the Ukrainian military to destroy this dam and flood a lot of positions over here. We can see some crossings that were wiped out. We've got these trenches that are filled with water, and then also dugouts that are completely flooded as well. It even shows a Russian military vehicle over here stranded right there in the water. So definitely a huge hit from Ukraine, causing some major issues for logistics for the Russian military over here. This is definitely going to slow down their advancement into Vovchansk, which is a city inside of Ukraine just over the border from the Belgorod region that has been attacked for several years now. Ukrainian forces are still fighting over there, but we have been hearing recently that the Russians were pushing further into that city. So I wonder if that's what Ukraine was doing here, was kind of a last-ditch effort to really slow down the Russian advance, because we have been hearing some reports that certain areas of the Kharkiv region are struggling right now for Ukraine. So that's probably why they did this. All right, so let's move on to another update now from Ukraine Frontline Daily, and it says Belgorod flooding, aftermath from space. Satellite imagery shows massive flooding below the Belgorod reservoir after the dam strike. Water is spreading fast, cutting off roads, supply routes, and defensive lines along the border region. So you can see the date here was October 26th. That would have been on Sunday when this strike was carried out. Here's a little map that was created, kind of showing back on October 20th how things were just prior to the strike. So the dam's going to be right here. This is the Belgorod Reservoir just south of that after this dam got hit. Look at all this major flooding that appears down here, especially in this area and then further downstream in the south. Huge flooding over here in these areas, flooding several different districts of the Belgorod region, and again, obviously affecting the Russian military. Here's a little map as well. I'll pull up a Google Maps here in just a second to show you a little bit better, but we've got the dam located right over here just south of Belgrade, really not that far away, and then just down here, this kind of white line is the border of Ukraine. There's Shebekino right there as well. So we'll jump on over to Google Maps now. Let me show you a little bit better of a map so you can kind of see visually what happened here. So here's Ukraine. Here's the Kharkiv region, just over the border from that. Here's Vovchansk, which again is that major city that Ukraine's fighting for right now. Just over the border from that is where this took place. So here's the city of Belgorod, just a little bit southeast of that. We have this town of Bezliodovka, if I'm saying that right, and also Grofovka. Okay, and just to the north of that, here is the dam that was attacked. Okay, and then there's the major reservoir right here just south of Belgorod city. And it came under attack right here in the center, actually. We had some pictures coming out showing a lot of these buildings being damaged. And this dam got originally hit right here, caused major damage and flooding, and allowed all that water to just flow through here. Then obviously started to flood a lot of these southern areas. So there is also a river that runs here. We heard that this river started to overflow as well. Major districts down here getting flooded and obviously causing a lot of logistical problems for the Russian military in these areas. So you can see just over the border from Vovchansk. And something to note is we have been hearing that the city of Vovchansk is not doing good for Ukraine right now. The Russians have pushed in, I'd say, roughly about 50% based on a map that I showed you guys a couple days ago. It's not looking good for Ukraine, so I wonder if this was some sort of last-ditch effort to really try to slow down the Russians in this area as the Russians are pressing further into the Kharkiv region, especially into Vovchansk, okay? So just a little map to kind of show you guys where this is going on at in this area of the border of the Kharkiv and Belgorod regions. Let's keep moving now. Z's Maxim, Indian refiners suspend new orders for Russian oil following sanctions, according to Reuters. Indian oil refineries have temporarily suspended new orders for Russian oil, awaiting official clarification from the government and suppliers. Some refiners are turning to spot markets to offset their crude needs. State-owned Indian Oil announced tender for crude, while Reliance Industries increased its spot purchases. U.S., UK, and EU sanctions against Russia, including restrictions on Rosneft and Lukoil, have forced Indian companies to reconsider imports. Refiners intend to sharply reduce purchases to comply with U.S. sanctions, a move that could facilitate a trade agreement with Washington. Now, I think that's what we're going to see coming next. Here's a report. Indian refiners pause new Russian oil orders, await clarity, sources say. So we're hearing more bad news for Russia, right? That these Indian refiners are pausing oil purchases. We heard about this the other day. Reuters was reporting that as well. So we're hearing more news that Indian refiners are not purchasing Russian oil. They're suspending purchases for right now as they're waiting clarity from the government. You know, what is the government going to do? Are they going to strike some sort of deal with the United States to get around this? Is India going to start purchasing oil elsewhere, maybe from the Middle East or the U.S. or something like that? We'll have to see. But right now, they are starting to suspend more and more oil purchases from Russia. So that's got to be hurting Russia big time. Here's another report, Maria Drutska, and it's official now. Lukoil is selling off all their foreign assets due to the U.S. sanctions imposed last week. It is sure is a good thing that Russians keep reminding us that sanctions don't work. Otherwise, I might have started to think they do actually work. So here's the report. Lukoil to sell foreign assets after U.S. sanctions. This actually came out yesterday, but I wanted to share this with you guys. So briefly, it says down here, Lukoil, one of Russia's largest oil producers, said it plans to sell its foreign assets following new U.S. sanctions targeting the company and its subsidiaries. PJSC Lukoil informs that owing to introduction of restrictive measures against the company and its subsidiaries by some states, the company announces its intention to sell its international assets. Lukoil said in a statement published on its website. The company added that it's currently reviewing bids from potential buyers. So things are getting so bad with this company, Lukoil. I think they lost the most out of both these companies with Rosneft too. They're losing so much money, they're having to sell their foreign assets now. They're having to do whatever they can to survive, right? They've got to sell their foreign assets to build up capital again because of all the money that's being lost from these sanctions. So that's another huge sign that these two major oil companies are heavily suffering right now. I've got more information on that as well. Check this out now. Kyrylo Shevchenko, sorry. 1/3 of Russian oil exports are now at risk after major Greek tanker firms, which used to ship up to 20 million barrels of Urals crude each month, halted operations due to new U.S. sanctions. Greek ships carried most oil from its western ports. Now Moscow must rely on its risky and costly shadow fleet. Freight rates from Primorsk to India surged to $8 to $10 million per voyage, with President of the United States sanctioning Rosneft and Lukoil and the EU blacklisting 117 more tankers. This hits Russia hard in the photos from Wall Street Journal. So yeah, guys, I mean, this was a huge report yesterday as well. These Greek tanker firms that are also suspending, transferring Russian Urals crude from their western ports of like Primorsk up near the Ust-Luga port. Okay, this is going to be closer to like Finland and Estonia in the Baltic Sea. Okay, so it's going to be affecting Russia's transports of Urals crude as well. Up to 1/3 of Russian oil exports could be at risk with this move that was made yesterday, also being reported. So Russia's just being hurt all around the board here, okay? This has got to be hurting them really bad right now, even though they claim that they're immune to sanctions. I mean, they're taking on massive losses, and the numbers do not lie here. And it says freight rates from Primorsk to India surged to $8 to $10 million, so going up by $2 million per voyage. So pretty insane news here. Let me know what you think about that. Here's more information. Igor Sushko, Russia, Lukoil is now down 20% and Rosneft 13% over the rolling 5-day period. So this was some updated numbers here over the past few days. This is coming out October 27th, so yesterday evening. And yeah, apparently we've got Lukoil and Rosneft dipping even further. So over the past 5 days, almost 20% in losses here on the Moscow Stock Exchange for Lukoil, and then also for Rosneft, they're down about almost 13% over the past 5 days. So ever since these sanctions came into effect, it is hurting them even more and more by the day, and it's only continued to get worse as the fallout from these sanctions take effect. So crazy news. Now, Michael McKay, for the second night in a row, Ukrainian drones are striking military and strategic targets in Moscow region on the territory of the Russian fascist invaders. On this drone bomber map, the red tracks indicate strike UAVs. The blue arrows are jet UAVs, small cruise missiles. Okay, so we had jet UAVs and standard propeller-driven drones going into Russia overnight, and a huge attack onto Moscow for the second night in a row. Unfortunately, no videos or pictures coming out showing that attack, but this is kind of how it was yesterday as well. We only had like one video really and a picture that came out showing some of these attacks onto Moscow. So we heard reports there were flights being delayed at some airports in Moscow again, but Ukraine appears to be going back to their old trick of shutting down airports inside of Moscow with these major drone attacks. That appears to be the large percentage of the drones that were heading up this direction. Same with the jet-powered UAVs. They were all heading over to Moscow. There's a few over here towards the eastern side of Ukraine in the Luhansk region, and looks like Rostov, maybe Volgograd Oblast. No reports of any explosions over here. If I do get that information later, I'll let you guys know, but not at this time. Now, Noel reports explosions are being reported near Moscow for the second night in a row. Ukrainian strike drones target the capital and rear areas. Russia's strategic and tactical aircraft are evacuating from airfields near Kubinka and Zhukovsky. Panic in the skies again. Yeah, it's the most information I was able to find was a statement here from Noel Reports talking about these explosions and the Russians evacuating tactical and strategic aircraft. But aside from that, no videos as of yet. But I do have this for you. Status 6, Ukraine's HURMO shows new footage of strikes with FPV drones targeting Russian military assets in the Donbas region. This is going to be in eastern Ukraine. Among the targets were a Kamaz truck, two modern 4.8 YA6 K1 podlet, low altitude surveillance radar systems, as well as the 9A82 Telar from the S300V air defense system. There's a video coming out. Apparently these were strikes that took place over the last week is what I was hearing. Looks like in this video we can see a Kamaz truck that was being attacked. There was some Russian troops right there as well. Here's one of these radars that were also being attacked. I think there was two of these that were directly struck. There's one there. And then also this over here should be that S300V system that was attacked. That's an air defense system. And then also over here we have another radar that was directly struck. So that was a new video coming out today from Ukraine's military showing some new strikes that were carried out in the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine. Now from Astra, half of Sakhalin was left without power. And Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk also lost water supply. The regional government reported that the cause was a lightning protection cable break on a power transmission line connecting two key substations. Yeah, I want you to see this video. So this kind of reminds me of some of the strikes we see inside of Ukraine when when Russia carries out strikes onto Ukraine's power grid. We usually see a bright flash in the sky like that whenever like missiles or drones are striking energy sites in Ukraine. So yeah, apparently this was some sort of accident that happened over here. Not necessarily, Ukraine attacking. I mean, this is far deep into Russia. Sakhalin is far away. So I wouldn't think this is the act of Ukraine, but the fact that we are seeing strikes on Ukraine's power grid, maybe Ukraine was able to carry out some sort of sabotage way over here on Sakhalin. And again, this is far east, like way out near North Korea. So there's some new video footage coming out from there. Now, War Translated, Russian forces attacked journalists from the German outlet Welt with a drone while they were filming the work of an air defense unit. The cameraman and producer were wounded. As a result of the attack, a Ukrainian soldier was killed and another sustained a severe leg injury that led to amputation. So I want you guys to see this pretty crazy video. It's not graphic or anything like that. Don't worry about that. But you're going to hear what sounds like a drone or some sort of incoming projectile. It slams into the ground. Somebody gets injured. And these were journalists from the German outlet Welt that were trying to record an air defense system in operation with the Ukrainian military. Take a look.
Fuck, let's go. Your life. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go. To three line. Fuck. Ibra. Let's go. Ты живой? Ваня.
Нога.
Давай, на плечо, залазь. На плечо залазь, на плечо. Пошли. Блять. Идем. Давай, мы живы.
All right, so very sad to hear that one of these journalists were hurt in this attack. When I was listening to that drone, it kind of sounded like it could have been like a rocket drone or something. It didn't sound like a propeller-driven drone. You guys can let me know what you think, but it seemed like it was somewhat of a smaller explosion, so most likely not a missile or anything like that. Probably some sort of rocket drone is what I'm thinking, but fortunately we did have some injuries over here, and a man did lose his leg after this explosion. So definitely a scary time to be a journalist inside of Ukraine, especially right next to an air defense unit that Ukraine is operating. So crazy video there. Now, Anton Yeroshenko, Lavrov is unhappy that President Trump, along with Ukraine and Europe, calls for an immediate ceasefire. Russia is the only party that doesn't want a ceasefire and an end to the war. It's becoming very obvious, hence Russia is using this rhetoric. Moscow was surprised by President Trump's change of position on ending the war in Ukraine, Lavrov said. According to him, the U.S. president has returned to positions that seem to have long since exhausted and which only reflect the hectic desire of Europeans and the Zelenskyy regime to get a pause in order to rearm the Kiev structure. So what he's talking about here is that he's unhappy that Trump wants a ceasefire in this war because Lavrov and the Kremlin believes that Ukraine wants a ceasefire. That way they can rearm themselves and prepare for further war or allow more weapons or anything like that to come into Ukraine. And then obviously, possibly, maybe even European troops. That's been talked a lot about. So I want you guys to see this clip, about 1 minute long. There is going to be subtitles here in the bottom.
Насчет изменений позиции, да, конечно, удивительно было, что вдруг президент Трамп опять ушел на позиции, которые, казалось бы, давно уже отработаны и которые отражают лишь лихорадочное желание европейцев и режима Зеленского получить паузу для того, чтобы вновь накачать оружием киевскую структуру, как она называется там у них, офис президента, вооруженные силы Украины и все прочие составные части киевского режима. И президент Трамп после Аляски неоднократно, и до Аляски, кстати сказать, говорил, что нужен долгосрочный, устойчивый мир, а не какое-то временное прекращение огня, которое ничего не даст, даже если оно продлится год или два. Это его слова. Так что я надеюсь, что все-таки вот эта логика, которая была Соединенными Штатами воспринята, логика установления долгосрочного мира, она возобладает.
Okay, so basically what I get from this statement is that the Russians do not want a ceasefire. Okay, we've seen that time and time again. They refuse to agree to a ceasefire. Ukraine has agreed to this many times. European nations, even the United States, calling on Russia to agree to a ceasefire. Doesn't look like we're going to get that right now, especially with statements coming out like that. Let's keep moving. War News PL, Russia has no intention of attacking any NATO country. Moscow is ready to confirm this in future security guarantees. Thought that was interesting. He talked about the Budapest Memorandum as well, the one that was signed with Ukraine when Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons, that apparently, they're serious about providing security guarantees and claim that they have no intention of attacking any NATO nation. So let me know if you think that's true or not. Do you agree with Lavrov? Do you think Lavrov is serious when they say they do not want to attack a NATO nation, or do you think it's the opposite and they will plan to attack NATO in the near future? Moving on now, Vicegrad 24, Lavrov said that NATO leaders are doing everything possible to convince the United States to abandon the idea of a settlement in Ukraine. Yeah, you heard that right. Listen to this as well, about 25 seconds.
На Украине именно европейские члены НАТО затягивают вооруженный конфликт, накачивая киевский режим оружием, оказывая ему финансовую и политическую поддержку. Руководство большинства европейских стран всеми силами убеждает администрацию США отказаться от идеи урегулирования на Украине путем устранения первопричин конфликта за столом переговоров. Но надеемся все-таки, на Украине именно
All right, so this reminds me of a statement that came out from the Kremlin just the other day. Was it Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov? Is either him or Lavrov that stated that Europe is trying to force Ukraine to extend the war, not to end the war, that they don't want the war ended. But yet at the same time, Europe has come out multiple times calling on Russia to agree to a ceasefire. So, if this was really that simple to end the war, why is Russia not agreeing to a ceasefire? Clearly they don't want to, and they're trying to put the blame on other people, is what it seems like to me, claiming that NATO leaders are doing everything possible to convince the U.S. to abandon the idea of a settlement in Ukraine. Pretty insane. Let me know what you think on that statement there. Now, Max 25, Russia has put forward a condition for the meeting between Putin and Trump, saying it wants guarantees. He expects clear guarantees from the West that the upcoming meeting between presidents will have a concrete result. Lavrov claims that during the previous meeting between Trump and Putin in Anchorage, the Russia side allegedly agreed to a number of initiatives presented by U.S. Special Representative Steve Witkoff during his visit to Moscow. So this story makes me think about Trump the other day stating that, he's not going to hold a meeting with Putin unless they're going to make a deal. That's apparently one of the conditions coming out from Trump. He's not willing to hold any kind of summit or meeting with Putin at all unless it is clear that a deal will be made to end the war. So looks like we've got the Russians kind of saying something similar here as well. They want guarantees that the upcoming meeting will produce a concrete result. So let me know what you think that concrete result is going to be in terms of Lavrov here. Now, Military News UA, we approach diplomacy only from the position where we stand. We will not leave this or that part of our state, says Zelenskyy. A few more important statements. So this is when Zelenskyy was speaking to the press today. Here's what he stated: the heating season in Ukraine will begin today. Our long-range missiles Flamingo and Ruda, there was a combat use. We are doing everything to try not 1, 2, 3 this year, but to try seriously. Thought that was interesting. That pretty much means that they're going to carry out, more long-range strikes onto Russia. Apparently, they have already carried out some strikes with Flamingo and Ruda missiles, and they're going to be doing that more. We talked about that yesterday, that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy had pretty much called on the military to expand their reach of strikes inside of Russia to reach deeper and deeper. So we're going to be seeing that for sure moving forward. Also, we are building up defense groups near Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk is the main target of the Russians. It was being widely reported yesterday that the Russians are heavily attacking Pokrovsk right now. Things are not looking good in that area for Ukraine. An offensive in Sumy, Kharkiv region is unlikely. The enemy does not have sufficient forces. They are redeploying efforts to Pokrovsk. Well, yeah, obviously, especially with the flooding around the Kharkiv region right now, right? The SBU confirmed that the mayor of Odessa, Trukhanov, has Russian citizenship. I must be sure that the authorities in Odessa will really protect the city. I'm having 3 parallel conversations about aircraft with the Swedes, the French, the Americans. The general request for the future of our combat aviation is a fleet of 250 new aircraft. Yeah, so apparently Ukraine's trying to purchase 250 new aircraft. 150 of those, I believe, are supposed to be those Gripen fighter jets from Sweden that are also going to be manufactured inside of Ukraine. From France, apparently I'm hearing they might be trying to get Rafale fighter jets as well, so I thought that was interesting. And then also from the Americans, that would be F-16 fighter jets. It all says of the long-range weapons in Europe, we use only Storm Shadow and Scalp. As for long-range strikes, 90 to 95% of our weapons, majority of those are going to be drones. And then finally, by the end of the year, Ukraine plans to produce 500 to 800 interceptor drones per day, but there's a shortage of operators for such UAVs. Let's hope they can do that, because we know these are very effective of shooting down Russian drones. So 500 to 800, interceptor drones they're trying to produce per day, but apparently they do have a shortage of operators to man those things. Now, from United 24 Media, Zelenskyy told Axios that Russia lost 346,000 troops this year, about as many as it mobilized in 2025. He said Putin will only take talks seriously if Ukraine can hit military and energy sites in Russia, adding that he told Trump Kiev won't rush to use long-range missiles. Okay, so this was Zelenskyy stated this yesterday to Axios, that he believes that Russia lost 346,000 troops in 2025. Obviously, these would be casualties, not just deaths, right? But that's what he claimed here. Let me know if you believe that. If that is the case, and if it happens to be true or anything remotely close to that, I mean, that's huge losses on the Russian side, and that'd be around the same amount that they are mobilizing, according to Zelenskyy. So let me know what you think on that statement. All right, now from next to Reset and Rule, Verska reports on extrajudicial killings in the Russian army. According to the outlet, torture and killings of soldiers by their own comrades are widespread within the Russian military. The reasons vary: refusal to join assaults, drunkenness, complaints, or personal revenge. Such murders are cynically referred to as resetting. Soldiers testify that commanders order the execution of the wounded if they cannot make it off the battlefield. Another common punishment is the pit, the earthen hole covered with a metal grate, where soldiers are thrown to sober up. Some of those tortured to death are sent home labeled as having died a hero's death. Troops are also report extortion by commanders who demand money for exemption from assaults or leave and confiscate bank cards in case of death. According to a Verska source in the main military prosecutor's office, nearly 29,000 complaints have been filed in 6 months, but no cases are open against officers to avoid undermining morale. So imagine trying to fight for the Russian military. It sounds like a very scary place to be. We hear a lot of reports like this where Russian soldiers are being tortured a lot of times just for refusing to, let's say, attack a certain position or anything like that. Many of them are tortured, sometimes killed as well. We continue to hear reports like this, so I couldn't imagine having to fight for Russia's military in this condition. This also shows how desperate the Russians are as well, and also how bad things are going on the front line. If they have to really force people to just run into battle and basically lose their life, that shows how much Ukraine is controlling the sky, especially with the FPV drones that we know they're utilizing heavily on the eastern side of Ukraine right now. This shows also why Russia's not really moving on the front line. Their morale is dropping as well. A lot of people don't want to fight, most likely, and want to try to get away from losing their life, obviously, too. So crazy story there. Now, next, Baltic companies supplied fuel to Russia's shadow fleet, according to LRT. That's going to be a Lithuanian news outlet. Journalists from Lithuania's national broadcaster LRT exposed a network of companies from Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia that supplied fuel to tankers of Russia's shadow fleet, helping the Kremlin evade oil sanctions. According to the investigation, the fast bunkering group used two bunkering vessels, Rena and Zircon. From June 2024 to March 2025, they delivered fuel to 286 tankers, at least 159 of which called at Russian ports either before or immediately after refueling. Anatoly Kravtsev, an analyst from the Kiev School of Economics, confirmed that at least 20 of these vessels are typical members of the Shadow Fleet, ships without international insurance and owned outside the jurisdictions of the sanctions coalition. Formerly, these tankers were not under sanctions at the time, but many were later added to the EU, US, and UK blacklists. Okay, so reports of companies inside some of these nations, the Baltic nations, that'd be Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, have been caught trying to refuel some of these Russian Shadow Fleet tankers. Now, that's not good news, right? Now, how are these companies not being regulated, especially with these sanctions, if they happen to be in effect with some of these tankers? But apparently there could have been upwards of 100 or more of these tankers that were being refueled throughout the last few years here. So that's crazy news. This really shows how, sanctions, they obviously need a lot of investigation to make sure that everybody's complying with this, because even nations that are friendly over to Ukraine, some of these companies, personal companies, are trying to benefit off of selling oil to these shadow tankers, and many of these even being sanctioned by the EU and the US. So crazy story. Let me know how you feel on that one. Now, Bliskovka, an airport in Spain, was closed again due to an unidentified drone. La Opinion de Murcia, if I'm saying that right, might be butchering that. Operations at Alicante International Airport were suspended for nearly 2 hours. The incident affected around 1,000 passengers. This was being reported today. We're starting to see reports of drones again in the skies over NATO nations or European nations, right? So this time being Spain again. And there was just reports just about a week or two ago that Spain was one of the last nations to see drones after like Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, lots of other nations up near the Baltic Sea were experiencing drones. Now we've got yet again another report of drones in the skies over an international airport inside of Spain. So it looks like this is starting back up again, at least inside of Spain for right now. Now, NOAA reports overnight on October 28th, Russia launched 38 attack drones, mostly Shaheeds from Kursk and Oriel. Ukrainian air defense shot down or jammed 26 of them. Strikes were recorded at 4 locations, with drone debris falling in 1 more. So definitely the smallest attack we have seen in a while now. Only 38 drones going into Ukraine overnight. We are coming up on towards the end of the week, so don't be surprised over the next day or two. The Russians are probably saving up a mass amount of drones to launch another major missile and drone attack onto Ukraine, possibly even targeting their capital of Kiev. So get ready for that. Usually when we see a dip in these numbers, soon after there's going to be a huge spike, and hundreds of them going into Ukraine in one night. Now, Kiev Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of October 28th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final update, Russia's losses as of October 28th, 1,060 troops, 28 AFVs, 131 vehicles and fuel tanks, 6 tanks, 8 artillery systems, 547 UAVs, 2 MLRS, 3 special equipment. Okay, so finally something here on this side, 3 special equipment being destroyed. We usually don't see that many being taken out. 2 MLRS, that's very big as well. Usually see about 1 per day on average. Today there's 2 of those. And 8 artillery systems, very low numbers here, probably the lowest we have ever seen. I want to say I don't think I've ever recorded anything lower than 10 before. 6 tanks and 28 AFVs. Okay, these numbers are going to be spiking like crazy over the next few days because there's so many videos coming out on X right now showing Russia launching mechanized assaults around the city of Pokrovsk. Again, there's heavy fighting ongoing over there in the Donetsk region, southeastern Ukraine, and the Russians are taking on huge amounts of losses, especially with military equipment. Lots of videos out there floating around online showing that the Russians getting smashed by FPV drones and Ukraine just wiping out these columns of tanks and AFVs. So vehicles and fuel tanks, I expect these numbers start spiking as well. They're still staying well above 100. We've been seeing that recently. And then troop losses starting to go up again as well. We usually see about 900 there for the last few days, and now starting to jump up back over 1,000, which I think those numbers might go up even further as we see this continued attack onto Pokrovsk in the southeastern side of Ukraine. So guys, I want to thank you very much for tuning in for today's update on October 28th, 2025, and I hope you all have a great day out there. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.